This is Mathilene Broadcasting Corporation. Inspired to inspire.
Okay, we welcome you all on Mathilene Broadcasting Corporation. Namhlanje sisohlelweni oluhle kakhulu, which is going to answer one of the most pertinent questions, which was inspired by the state capture report, the South African one, which was handed over to President Cyril Ramaphosa on the 22nd of June. We are going to answer the question, is Zimbabwe a captured state? Your questions, but first, let me go to Dr. Mguni. Your contributions.
I will go on this principle. It's going to be 2 or 3 minutes. That if something has been said, don't say it, particularly if you're not going to do it as well as the people that have gone before you. Every time I am asked to appear with Dr. Skabate, I'm excited because of the depth of his knowledge in these particular things. For those that don't know, my background is in science, and therefore I'm really spring chicken when you are in this field. But notwithstanding that, I will humbly sort of put another perspective, just a different point of view. I know that we're focusing on Zimbabwe, and Dr. Skabate said that state capture is something that there's possibly no state that is not captured. Now, if we look at what state capture really is, the systematic political corruption in which private interests significantly influences a state's decision-making. Now, if you put it like that, we're going to finish this in one just first line. Yes, of course, is state captured. Now, the perspective that I'm going to give that is different than the very, very informative contributions that have been made by the panelists. I'm actually citing Dr. Skabate because we have actually participated and presented. I've been there learning a lot from what he's going to give because it is his field. But I'm going to give a different perspective in this way. Now, state capture is an ongoing fight between the private interests and those that actually rule. If we look at how we arrived at where we are, we can go back. I think that the panelists have said that post-colonial, as just a common person, a common man, I would say it was state capture existed well before that. Now we can go back as far as Harold Macmillan, when he said the winds of change are blowing across Africa. He was not talking about the emancipation of the Africans. He was saying, if we go back to the Berlin Conference and what it intended for Africa, that beware, we could be losing what the Berlin Conference was all about. The Berlin Conference was that it sought to discuss the partitioning of Africa, establishing rules to amicably divide resources among the Western countries at the expense of the African people. Now, the Western world wouldn't have rushed to give the Africans the independence if that independence didn't reverse the benefits that we're going to get from them. Now, of course, the states are going to be captured. The levels of capture are going to vary according to the prevailing conditions in that particular state. Zimbabwe as a state is ripe for state capture. Now, you look at what is prevailing. Zimbabwe as a one center of power state, if state or nation, or whatever you want to call it, that really is ripe for people that want to take advantage of whatever the resources are. If we were to look at that, it's arguably, Zimbabwe could be one state that could exist without having to actually look for anything from outside the state. You look at what actually happened before independence with Smith running that the show, and how it could survive, and then immediately after how it has collapsed to what it is. It is because the prevailing conditions are so fertile for those who want with private interests to exploit than possibly anywhere else in the world. I'm reminded, I'm old enough to remember, there was a Professor Bone, who was the professor of education at the University of Rhodesia, or the University College of Rhodesia. And he said something that has stayed with me for a long, long time at the graduation. And he stood up and said, there are people that say that our African graduates are not clever. I disagree with that entirely. Our African graduates are very clever, but their white counterparts are wiser. And I think what is happening, what actually has led to where we are, with the state capture, with the interest that actually was engendered in the Berlin conference, the state capture is the people that we are looking at are also just victims. They are cogs in this particular big wheel that actually wants to exploit it to the maximum. The lesser the number of people are beneficiaries, the better it is. I'll cite other examples. You look at people like Umaru Diko from Nigeria as an example. You look at Mobutu Sese Seko. These people are examples of what happens in an African context where people leading them are stupid, or they are so gullible, or they are actually so easy to corrupt. If, let's say we went to our chair now, and I said I wanted to capture, and we think that he's going to be the president next time, and I just slide £1 million under the desk, and I say, now, when you become the leader of your country, you do this for me. The people that are benefiting from the state capture, the main beneficiaries, would be amazing. That you look at London, you look at Washington, you look at the people that are benefiting maximally are people that are really, the top raise, if I can mention the name like that without being sued for libel, they are only minor players in this. The problem is much, much bigger. When I have been engaging, I think I actually going to even the people that we thought supported our struggle with Russians. They said that we supported your party at the time. That was self-interest. The interests of state capture are way beyond the people that are actually practicing it. They benefit along the way, but certainly with what we've got in our country, in Zimbabwe, the state capture is right up to the, sorry, I need to finish the sentence because I need to sort of go, I'm not particularly well. But if you look at the likes of Mnangagwa, if Mnangagwa went to these bosses tomorrow and said, I've had enough of this, I want to move away from it, I'm sure they would just say, you know, you're going nowhere. Because his position, his being there, is to benefit them. The state capture would not allow them. These guys are filthy rich, the riches that they have, they don't need. You look at Mobutu Sese Seko, how long has he been dead? And there's still $60 billion of Mobutu Sese Seko money still sort of lolling around in Switzerland. Yeah, okay. So the answer to is Zimbabwe is sort of the capture state? Of course it is. And the capturing, unfortunately, I know that it is depressing to actually sort of consider this. You look at Chamisa saying that I'm going to change the trajectory of the country. That's rubbish. Immediately, he goes in and actually assumes power. The bosses at the top that are responsible for that state capture will read the riot act to him to say, this is what you follow, because that's the advantage that they want perpetuated. Now, if you want to break away from that state capture, what happens to you? Look at what happened to Muammar Gaddafi. Look at what happened to Patrice Lumumba. And you will know how shackled these states are. The people that maybe were able to break out of state capture to a certain extent are people like Lee Kuan Yew, is it, of Singapore. And even then, maybe the advantage that he had at the time was that there was not that much resource for the state capturers to try to keep in place. You look even at Deng Xiaoping, whatever, of China. Now, the way that he was able to actually get his country slightly out of state capture was because of the complexities. And I think that our educated can actually say, why were these people able to come out of that nebulous web of state capturers? The state capture in our country is real because we do not have the institutions that could fight that state capture. And even if we had the institutions themselves, the power to actually break out of that nebulous web of state capture would make it mighty difficult. Even my dear friend, Dr. Skabade, if he were to be president tomorrow, I wouldn't hold any hope for Zimbabwe coming out of state capture because unfortunately, they would actually read the Riot Act. Your role is you will be exceedingly rich yourself as a person. Or if you do not want to follow the line, you're gone. Like what happened to Patrice Lumumba. We have state capture. Yes, I do not know. Unfortunately, I've got to go now because I really am ailing. Is there a way that we can break out of that axis of the spider's web? If somebody said to me, Ralph, you are going to be the president of Zimbabwe tomorrow, run a mile, because it really is a toxic environment to be in.
That's fine.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks
Sorry,
very much, Dr. Mguni. All right. We'll let you go because we know you're not feeling very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Siyabonga kakhulu, sibonge kakhulu ama-panelists ethu, sibonge nama-participants engingasawanikezanga ithuba. Sibonge nabo bonke abalaleli nababukeli be-Material Broadcasting Corporation. Igama nguThulana kaNkala ngithi khung.
This is Material Broadcasting Corporation. Inspired, inspire.